We'd like to call, please, Don Mattos, followed by Bob McCullough and Sean Fogel.
Hello, and thank you for hearing me today. My name is Dawn Mattos. I'm a resident of Griswold, Connecticut. I'm also a longtime friend of Alicia Jackson's parents, and ironically, I live across the street. So their tragic story impacted me as if it was my own children, and I was prepared to make a statement on this IPC, and after listening to everybody, we have a problem with our system. You're basically saying the ICPC does not need to have changes. It clearly does. And the fact that I had to reach out to my representatives for help, it went on deaf ears, except for Brian Leno, Ann Daphnes, and Doug Dubinsky. All our other representatives were silent. If nothing else, Matthew Jackson serves in the U.S. military and almost died on the USS Connecticut. He almost died, and he has to worry about his children. Our system is broken. I should not have to advocate as much as I have had to advocate for this family. And where do they go? You have a judge that was incarcerated. He had to step down for having sexual relationships with a juvenile court clerk in the courthouse, had inappropriate relationships with prisoners where he was hearing their cases. These are the people that cast a judgment on these people. Chief Petty Officer Matthew Jackson and Alicia Jackson deserve for attention to this case. And I do not want to hear, not one more time, it's a Tennessee issue. We are all mandated reporters for children. These children have been greatly affected. The impact it has done to this family. I'm amazed they stayed as compelled and together as they have. And you have no idea what it has done to my best friend, Sue, the grandparents. Because they had to do immediate kinship, foster care, their laundry list of what they had to do to get these kids into Connecticut, of course they were eager and willing to do it because it was the right thing to do. But they're grandparents, and this ICPC requires them to take foster care classes? I mean, they had to at least initiate that, in addition to a boatload of other costs. And while this family is spending thousands and thousands of dollars to win their kids back, and I keep hearing it's a Tennessee problem. It's not a Tennessee problem. It's medical kidnapping is what it is. And we are going to be heard. And I so appreciate our representatives, because I reached out to every single one in the state of Connecticut, and people that claim to love our military, they were silent, and it is appalling to me. And I cannot thank Representative Daphnes, Representative Leno, and Representative Doug Dubinsky, because they are for the people. And I thank you for your time. I cannot stress enough, I am sure the Jacksons are not the only family, because there is abuse of power in Tennessee and all the other states. So in your ICPC, I recommend that you have a clause in there so that when somebody has abuse of power, we do not have to go through all these channels and bankrupt families that are fighting for their children. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your impassioned testimony. Are there any questions from the members of the committee? Representative Lanu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mrs. Mattos, thank you so much Thank you for advocating. First of all, before I ask you questions, I just want to be clear, too, what 5263 is all about. And Madam Chair, I very much appreciate your comments for the last witness. I want to make clear what 5263 is. It doesn't speak to, hey, we're going to redo the compact. We're going to opt out of ICPC. We're gonna put it through the shredder and burn it and hope it never exists again. What this is saying is ICPC, this other compact that might be is affecting the Jacksons and others can we at least look at it and say, is it possible? Can we make changes to it? To have the child advocate, to have the commissioner of DCF, and have the chief administrative judge of Connecticut be able to sit down and say, is it possible? So let's have an extended discussion here. Does this warrant it? At least to have that discussion. I'm not saying maybe it's not possible to modify it. I don't know. But I think this is going to take a lot more effort than just today. We need to have this discussion. We need to have this examination. And we're not saying we're going to make these changes. Is it possible? At least let these people come to the table. The child advocate today seemed very open to be a part of this and at least examine it. I think it's worthy to have that discussion for a year. I think the Jacksons more than paid their dues to make sure we have this discussion for maybe the next year or two with these folks. Allow others to at least tell their story. Examine this a little further. Look at these records that maybe Tennessee didn't. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be preaching to you, Ms. Mattos, but I believe you're speaking on behalf of the grandparents who currently have the children in their custody.
Yes.
You're here in that capacity. If I understood right, 43 days before they had these children, these babies, twin baby boys, were taken away from their birth parents to be put in a strange state with strangers in some foster care system that we're not familiar with, none of us are familiar with. For 43 days, they were in that situation. Because now with the ICPC, there were things that they needed to go through. The biological grandparents of these twin boys' mother. I guess I'm just wondering, what was the process? 43 days? What was the process the grandparents possibly had to go through? The biological grandparents, upstanding citizens as far as I know. What did they need to go through under ICPC to keep these kids down there, away from their biological parents, with strangers, for 43 days?
So the very day that they were informed by their daughter that they were taking them, the grandmother immediately got on the phone in desperate, can you imagine? Desperate, trying to figure out how to get these kids to Connecticut and trying to understand what's even happening. The whole story is just so bizarre. And they turned around and had to call one of their friends who has a daughter in the DCF system to find out what can we do. Instead of having your DCF workers in Tennessee, it should be a universal thing. Do you have parents? Do you have a kinship? Do you have a place these kids can go? That should have been, their rights were violated. They didn't even know that was even an option. The grandmother found out, had to call Alicia, then they had to do the whole court process for that as well. And the DCF worker in Connecticut advised them to make sure you have the judge sign off on it, because that was very important that you obtain his signature. And then they had to go through the whole process, like I was saying. They had to apply for foster care. They at least had to start it. They had to take CPR and first aid, and they had to be certified in it. These are their grandchildren. Our system is broken, and I just think that the ICPC, I get it. I do understand there are real cases out there that children are abused, and I am a huge child advocate. But there has to be some kind of clause in there that, because let's face it, I don't care what, arena you're in, there is abuse of power. And where there has to be some kind of clause in every bill you do for that abuse of power. And it's just unfortunate that they can't just be grandparents to their grandchildren. They're having to be parents to their grandchildren. They don't get to just have that special relationship. And I feel guilty because I have 2 grandchildren. And I just feel bad because this family is so broken, and how they just pick up their pants and put their shoes on and function day to day. I don't know how they do it. And as you can tell, I'm very passionate. I'm angry because I just want them to enjoy being parents. They've been robbed. And the grandparents are being robbed from being grandparents. It's just sad.
Where I'm angry as a legislator, and again, this is not an indictment under Connecticut TCF, but where there's no way that we can independently evaluate what's going on in another state that was made, a decision that was made on Connecticut residents who just had to happen to have their feet on the ground at that time with a very questionable judge, to put it lightly. I guess my other question is there disputes between, or any type of conflicts between the Connecticut guidelines and the Tennessee guidelines as it relates to, say, parental visitation?
It did. And that was part of the process that held the kids up from coming to Connecticut. Was Connecticut felt that since Tennessee were saying that these kids were severely abused, they only wanted to give them, I believe it was 1 day a week visitation for the parents. And Tennessee turned around and said no, I think they allowed them 5 days, right? 5 days visitation. So, that contradicts itself, right? You're pressing felony charges on these people. They have to have the felony side in addition to the juvenile side. You're saying that these are awful, abusive parents, but you're going to give them 5 days, and Connecticut wanted to give them 1 day. So fortunately, Tennessee, because they have the authority, they were able to get the 5 days, but it has to be a universal. I don't know how you can apply the IPCP and not have it be universal. It has to be. And I think there really has to be a clause in there that protects the parents' rights. They were so violated, and they continue to be violated as they start to lose all their money. And Matt has to go out on deployment soon, and he has to endure all this. There has to be an answer, and we are pleading with you.
I hear those pleas, believe me. I hope 5263, that's why we can move forward, at least try to get answers. Let's apply answers. If nothing can be done at the end of the day, then nothing can be done in the immediate. Let's at least get some facts. Let's get the facts on the table. Let's have a discussion, and we got all the right people. Let's bring them together. Let's bring you guys in, and let's have this discussion over the next year or two. I don't think this is a huge ask. Ms. Mattos, thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate
and
it.
I do appreciate your committee.
I did have 2 questions. I do appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Marr.
Thank you for your testimony. Just a quick question for clarity's sake. The judge you were speaking about before, was that judge in Connecticut or Tennessee?
Tennessee.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Representative Dauphiné.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Don, for being here. We have spent hours
Many.
on the phone, hours. The Jacksons are lucky to have you. You have been a great advocate and a great friend, and for sure this testimony got out because of you, for sure. You just pushed on, pushed forward. One of the biggest things I see with this state-to-state thing is that I don't know what Connecticut would do. I do know that Connecticut, when I call them, they respond. I've had good responses. I know the commissioner today agreed to see Rep. Lanu and I, so we will do what we can to further this along. But one thing that seems really apparent to me is the time that's gone by with nothing done. And there's nothing been reported from the day they were removed to now that suggests that there is a problem. If anything, quite the opposite, because Connecticut's been reporting that the family has done everything. They're good family. They're responsible parents. They're not abusive, yada, 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 yada. Why has it been so long? And so that to me really stands out, and I don't know if that can be worked into this ICPC commerce that goes across state to state, but we should have some kind of time frame that children, you can have your voice heard in court and have an opportunity to get your children back in a timely manner. This is just so egregious, and we're grateful that you're here, and we're going to do everything that we can. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Representative Pizzuto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very quickly, Ms. Mattos, wouldn't a review by doctors with the new evidence of the disease that they say they have erase that? Wouldn't that bring it to a new light to say, under review medically, they were not breaking their legs, they were not abusing the children? It seems like you have that at least as something in your tool chest. But has anyone brought that up? I'm sure doctors could review it, surgeons and pediatric, orthopedic, right?
That is true, but here's the problem. While you have a judge that is under legal matters, he kept pushing their case out and kept pushing it out because he had his own issues going on. So unfortunately, the Connecticut senator that I spoke to, when I explained that about this judge and what's happening in the Tennessee courthouse, she said it's irrelevant to the case. And I said, it's not irrelevant. These people have not had their fair due process allowed. They have not been able to prove they did not abuse their kid. It's so broken.
That would be the first thing I would go after.
Yeah. And even they discredited the doctor up at Boston University. And I think there's a power struggle. I think there is truly an abuse of power. Tennessee is broken. And because of the restrictions not allowing Connecticut to step in, even though we are Connecticut residents and Matthew serves in the U.S. Navy, I'm like, if nothing else, that blows my mind.
I agree. Thank you for your testimony. It's very compelling.
Thank you.
Thank you.